welcome to Rising. We've got another great show for you today. This is the morning after the vice presidential debate. We were up late watching and reacting to it.
Thank you to our makeup artists, because there's some dark circles under these eyes
yes,
today.
There's a lot of stress on this face that they do an excellent job of covering up. We're now going to get to reactions to the debate. There were a lot of them. The mainstream media certainly had a bunch of things to say about that debate that occurred between Tim Walz and J.D. Vance last night. Many, myself included, say that Vance scored a pretty significant victory. Let's take a look.
There is no doubt in my mind, however Governor Walz did in terms of sincerity, that Vance won this debate.
Does Governor Walz have a problem with the truth? No.
They were talking, at one point, Vance wanted to correct something about how Haitians got into this country. And he was right, and the moderators wouldn't let him correct it. It's very interesting.
But at the beginning, the two issues driving the campaign right now are Harris has a big deficit on the economy, Harris has a big deficit on immigration, and Republicans were happy tonight, and Democrats a little bit nervous that on those two issues, Vance carried it.
J.D. Vance is much more experienced at this, at public speaking, at defending himself, at pivoting.
It's the audacity. I agree with you that we're in year 9 and no one knows how to cover the audacity. The audacity is that someone should have said, stop it, stop. Are you effing kidding me? And they should have dropped that F-bomb, right? I mean, they should have just, this is a debate. This may be the only chance people have to see the difference.
Don't really understand what she was saying there. MSNBC's Joy Reid voiced a fiery defense of Walz's debate performance. That's hardly surprising. Let's watch.
A smooth lie is still a lie.
Yeah.
J.D. Vance is incredibly smooth, but he said, number one, nothing memorable. There's nothing clippable in what he said. They were just all smooth, bland lies. He got outdone by by Tim Walz, who may be awkward. It took him a while to get warmed up, but he won the debate because he actually had substance. He was relatable, and he didn't go in there to slay J.D. Vance. He went in there to show himself, and he showed himself to be bipartisan. He showed himself to be reasonable. Practical. He showed himself to be practical. He acted as a governor. And a lot of people are complaining that he didn't knock J.D. Vance out and that he wasn't rhetorically cruel. But that was not his job. It was obvious that his job was to sell Kamala Harris as president. He did that very well. He won the debate.
But swing state voters seemed more impressed with J.D. Vance's performance. The Washington Post polled a group of such people. Majority of them said Vance won the debate. So, you know, I'm not surprised to hear Joy Reid running cover for Walz's performance, but it seems like most people had the same takeaway that we did, that regardless of what you think about the candidates and their policy positions, Vance is more experienced at this and was rhetorically very gifted, and I think has benefited from doing a lot of media, including a lot of hostile media interviews in the last few weeks. He's done more than Trump, Harris, or Walz put together. And, you know, Walz was sold as someone who's good on camera and can do a good job in, maybe not in debate situations, but at least in interview situations. And I think he should have done more media to get himself ready for this kind of thing, even unfriendly media.
I don't know if it was about more media. I mean, listen, I think he's great in the media regardless. I don't think either one of them knocked it out of the park. I do think Joy Reid had some very important points to make. J.D. Vance was measured, sure, but he was still saying the same crazy stuff that he's been saying while he's doing that hostile media, the same crazy stuff that Donald Trump has been saying. Maybe he's not, you know, insulting people to their faces. What J.D. Vance had to do, he didn't have to hit a home run. And neither did Tim Walz. But he didn't hit a home run. It wasn't an amazing debate. They were decent to each other. There were no attacks against each other, very minimal tension. But, you know, for debate standards, he didn't overcome some major hurdles. He basically said what he wanted, when he wanted to. He didn't insult anybody. He wasn't, you know, cuckoo express like Donald Trump is. But he didn't have to hit a home. He just had to show that he was a little bit more likable than he was the day before, because he is the most unlikable vice presidential pick of all time. And that's what they were facing. They needed to show that the Trump campaign has somebody who can be a little bit more charming, can talk to normal people. And Walz, on the other hand, had to keep that image of being the folksy guy, because a whole new portion of America was going to see him. I think what was the problem with Walz was he was nervous at the beginning.
He was incredibly
He was so nervous at the beginning. He warmed up, but by the time you're at the end, how many people have tuned out? I mean, that's when I think Vance started getting a little crazy, when he started to, like I said last night, getting into QAnon land, when he was denying the election. He wouldn't admit, this was huge.
He didn't deny the election.
He wouldn't admit that Donald Trump lost the election. He said, I just want to move forward. This is the man who's in this position because when the January 6th rioters stormed the Capitol, they wanted to hang Mike Pence. So he's in a really difficult position right now where he has to balance the truth with not going against the base that he needs to turn out, who might turn on him. And that's just the reality of the situation. Tim Walz, I wish he'd push back a little bit. I think he could have pushed back a little bit. I know he trained with Pete Buttigieg. You know, Pete Buttigieg is great in the media. I don't think he's, known for debates. I mean, we'd be better to train Tim Walz.
Pete Buttigieg does do, however, interviews with adversarial media. He does interviews on Fox. I think that's an important thing, and it shows. Walz was so nervous, he tripped over his words a couple times. Much of the debate, the first sort of 70% of it, was heavily about immigration and how that affects the economy, how that affects housing and healthcare and other issues.
Well, that was framed by Vance. That wasn't the question. Anytime Vance was asked any question, he would say, it's the immigrants' fault. It's like, why are your potholes not filled? Immigrants. Why don't you have healthcare? Immigrants. Why do the immigrants? And of course, he was fact-checked to that. I mean, if you could get that QR code moving.
I could not get the QR code to work. In fact, I think they conceded it didn't work because eventually they put on screen. Actually, just go to cbsnews.com, which is what I suggested in the first place, that no one wants to point their, I almost swore, their phone at the camera to pull up the thing. But look, I think the pivot to those issues was effective, because they're the number one things that people care about. And look, do I agree with all of the solutions J.D. Vance is proposing? No. I think there are trade-offs between having high levels of immigration. If immigrants are coming in and are swamping the social services in parts of the country, that can have a negative impact on small communities, as is clearly being felt. But also, immigrants are part of the workforce, and we will make things more expensive if we start wholesale shutting down productive sectors of the economy. Will actually make things worse. So there's a tension between trying to fix the immigration problem that people are so concerned about and lowering the cost of goods and services, which is also the other complaint. So there are trade-offs, is what I'm saying. And I think J.D. Vance addressed these things pretty substantively and pretty intellectually. And J.D. Vance, Tim Walz was often saying that he agreed with Vance. They were saying that they agreed even on the policy issues, on having sterner, or more strict, vigorous border enforcement. They agreed on doing more for unions and for labor. Tariffs are going to remain in place to some degree, regardless of which administration is in power, because Trump did them, Biden continued them, and now they're going. Although Vance knocked Kamala Harris for not being as in support of them as Biden is. There was a lot of commonality on policy, actually.
Well, they would start at that point. I mean, that's what they both trained at. They're like, I like you. And when, J.D. Vance acknowledged that Tim Walz's son, who had witnessed a shooting, I mean, J.D. Vance stopped in that moment and showed a human side to him, which is what he really needed to do. They are inverse of each other. J.D. Vance has this issue where he keeps getting caught on camera not knowing how to communicate with human beings. And on the other side, you've got Walz, who's not a professional politician. I mean, he's a politician, but he's not,
He's a professional. What do you mean?
He's not a
professional. He's been in politics for 20 years.
He has, but
he
is not, he's folksy. He's not used to being in he's not a national name. The folks who want to rise up to the top take this path. They get the media people, they get the trainers, they get all the stuff. And Tim Walz just never went that path. He was just, he rose up in a very organic way, which is quite lovely, I think, that you don't have to hire all the strategists and the consultants and the media people who are going to make sure that you get your appointment. Pete Buttigieg.
There's some hostility there to Secretary Mayor Pete.
I just don't think everyone keeps saying he's so great in the media.
I'm not
and I'm like, this guy should not have been in charge of debate. You get someone who trains in debates. That was the debate strategist. And honestly, and that's the person who criticized Tim Walz's debate was David Axelrod, and David Axelrod picked Pete Buttigieg. Like, come on, guys, hold some accountability. Where does the buck stop?
Look, I don't find either of them I mean, this is not surprising because I don't really like political figures as a category of people. I don't find either of them particularly relatable. I think the purported folksiness of Tim Walz is a little bit of a performance. I find him kind of hectoring and mean, but
mean.
But I don't find him likable at all.
Oh, well,
maybe
you won't
that's
be voting
just
for him.
What?
I think he's lovely.
Well, tell us what you thought of the debate and whether the media is getting it right or wrong. Obviously, we had a video last night reacting to some of the moderation choices, which you're not going to be shocked to hear I was not a fan of at all. I'm probably going to have more to say on that later this week. But we've got a lot more topics to get to on Rising. Stay tuned. More coming up.